Hello and welcome. Well, we each have had first-hand experiences at the trials and tribulations that COVID-19 has delivered. Now, depending which state and or territory that you live in, you may very well still be experiencing life in lockdown. As we know, Victoria, where I am right now, and Casey is as well, we're right in the midst of it. So irrespective, if you're looking back at life in lockdown or looking at it right smack bang in the middle of the eyes, you may have unintentionally formed a new habit during life in lockdown as a coping mechanism, that being drinking a little more alcohol than normal. So, if you want to reduce the amount of alcohol you've been drinking recently, then you're not alone. Now, did you know that 1 in 5 Aussies actually regret how much alcohol they drank during the first lockdown? Well, to help bravely share her personal experience, we welcome our special guest, Casey Bennett, a mother of 3 kids, all under the age of 8 years of age. Now, she's from Victoria, and in that, she actually picked up the habit of drinking daily during our first lockdown in our state. Thanks for joining us, Casey. How are you doing?
Hi, good, thanks.
Now, thank you for sharing your story, why you started drinking more. And I'm sure there's plenty of parents wanting to know how you actually broke the habit. Now, firstly, with everything that we've been living through, it's no surprise that parents have looked for another way and another coping mechanism with the stresses that we've been living through and are continuing to live through as well, including,
For sure.
including stuff like losing work, financial pressures, loss of social connectedness, and possibly even having people and loved ones suffer with COVID, given how many cases we've actually got in our state here.
Mm.
So, when we look at life, it's been really nothing short of hell, to put it frankly. But, in these never seen before circumstances, I guess we're all just trying to do our very best. So I'd just love to know your thoughts on this initially.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's just exceptional circumstances we've never been in before. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, just like myself and my husband, used a glass of wine at night as our sort of reward for getting through the day, and it felt a bit like a stress reliever. I know I had to stop work because I run a Pilates studio and we weren't allowed to work. So I think initially being home every night, which I'm not normally, as I'm normally working, and I was spending more time with my husband once the kids were in bed. And so just sort of having a glass of wine seemed like a nice thing to do. It sort of almost felt like the weekend, and then it just
it was
was
every day was
over
Saturday.
and over, Groundhog Day, exactly. And
Uh,
yeah, I mean, that first lockdown didn't feel quite as long as this one is, but yeah, we just noticed that initially we would say, oh, do you want a glass tonight? Oh, yes. And then as the weeks went on, we didn't even ask. It was just, we got our knife and fork and we got our glass of wine. Like it was a given that we would drink every night. And we didn't necessarily drink a lot every night, but
it was just the
prior to
consistency.
lockdown, exactly, prior to lockdown, we were only weekend drinkers. So, going from 3 nights a week to 7 nights a week, it's a significant jump.
Yeah.
And we both were aware. We were lucky that we were both in the same boat. We were both doing it together, and we both realized, hold on, this is a lot more than we normally drink. Like, we're going through our wine so much quicker. The cost of it as well. I wasn't working, and we sort of realized, oh, hold on, we're spending a lot of money on wine and we're drinking far too much. So we were able to make the decision together, and we were aware of that behaviour together, which made a big difference. I think it would be very hard if your significant other was not, supportive of trying to cut back, or we sort of helped egg each other on a little bit to make a change.
100%. And
Yeah.
there's new poll data from the Alcohol and Drug Foundation where they surveyed 1,000 Australians between the ages of 18 and 65. And the poll revealed that many Australians had picked up the habit in relation to their alcohol consumption during lockdown, and showed both sort of positive and negative effects. Now, is there anything else, I guess, and you've given us a little bit of intel, I guess, about your personal experience. but I understand you had to shut the doors immediately to your business, a Pilates basement,
Yep.
which
Yep.
would have been an incredible shock. And so we empathise with you, and all of our hearts go out to anyone in a similar situation as COVID has affected and continuing to affect so many businesses. Did you, or how did you find that in particular affected you? And did you find that was maybe a contributing factor to the change in your drinking patterns or not?
I do. I think initially it wasn't such a shock. I mean, we sort of thought it was coming, but we certainly didn't expect it to go on as long as it did. But yeah, I think for me, having 3 boys under 8, especially now they're home all day, going to work is almost like my self-care. Like, I enjoyed spending time with adults and being a little bit separate from the kids and feeling like I was contributing to, society. And so having that cut off just meant the stress levels of being home all the time. All of a sudden I'm a stay-at-home mum, which I, hadn't chosen to be. So the stress of that and the anxiety of not knowing when it was going to end, and the financial pressure of when am I going to be able to work again, and all of those factors just combined, trying to homeschool. I'm not a teacher. I never trained to be a school teacher, with a toddler to entertain and a baby to look after was just, the stress levels and
It was all combined.
all
Like,
combined.
yes,
And
yeah.
being that you couldn't go anywhere or really do anything.
And you didn't have that you time anymore as well. You didn't have that
Exactly.
break.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then at night when the kids would go to bed, that was sort of like let's celebrate and relax and, have our wine, and
As well. And
that was our experience.
homeschooling and or assisting your children in their remote learning, whichever phrase I guess everyone's using,
Yeah.
has been using. But this, in essence, has made many parents feel like they're actually aging in dog years, and it's not a great time to increase your grey hairs when all the hairdressers are shut, as we were just saying offline before as well. And your husband Craig is a carpenter, a tradie, and was able to keep working and to get out of the house, as you just said. So you've gone from having a balance of having you time to be able to, with parenting, to just being home and just homeschooling the three boys on your own. So how did you find the experience of homeschooling the 3 kids at home by yourself? And did you find it's obviously contributed?
For sure. And I think that's the case for most people. It's just not something we ever thought we'd have to do or planned to do. I think everyone's situation would be different. If you had multiple kids doing school, that would be a challenge. For me, the challenge was 3 kids all in very different stages, one doing school, one, a toddler. He can't read to himself. He can't occupy himself all day. So I'm trying to keep him, occupied other than just watching the TV. And then a baby who still needs, nappy changes and sleeps and being fed. So it was the logistics of how to fit it all in, and the juggle of that was what I found really stressful. I was very lucky my son, who's in grade 1, he's quite a studious kid. So the actual, difficulty of the work wasn't a problem for me. It was the juggle of trying to manage them all and, keep the noise down a little bit and just keep everyone on a bit of an even keel. It was that was the challenge, and still is the challenge, obviously, in Victoria. Yes. We're still going.
Would be for so many households. And you mentioned before that you justified the wine as a reward, getting through homeschooling or just making it through another day of lockdown with 3 kids under 8 years old.
Yes.
And before you knew it, you were rewarding yourselves with alcohol every evening. Did you find that at that stage it had sort of control, that you had control of that momentum, or if it sort of had control of you? Like what was sort of that feeling as like, sometimes when they say, you can't see the forest for the trees, and I guess a lot of families now that we're in stage 4, it's even more amplified as well. So did you find you had control of the situation and or it was controlling you?
Look, I think to start with, we felt in control, but it sort of took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And certainly did, just become a habit. It didn't even take any thought. It was just our new normal. And I think my husband and I, were quite lucky in that we picked it up before it controlled us, and we were very aware of not wanting that to happen. So hence why we made the change. But I think, it can be a bit of a rabbit hole where people don't realise that's what's been happening until it's been, how many months have we been in lockdown now?
About 3 years, I think it feels like.
Right, exactly. So they, I've actually had messages from friends after they've realised, hello, this is Nathaniel.
Hi, Nathaniel.
Matey, can you go out to your brother, darling, please? I'll be
I
out
love
soon.
your Spider-Man
Please.
outfit. Love
please,
it.
darling. Anyway.
It's okay. And you mentioned also that the longer the lockdown went, the less of a charade was made about drinking, and you stopped making excuses and even asking each other, like you said, if you wanted a drink.
Yeah.
Instead, you just
Was
poured
just
yourself a glass of wine, and it just became part of your everyday wind down routine. So how long did it actually take for you to realise that you had increased your alcohol consumption at that stage?
I think we noticed it straight away, but being that we didn't know how long lockdown was going to last, we sort of thought, oh, this is just a small blip in time. This is how we're going to cope with it. And that's okay. Because if it was only a few weeks, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But the fact it went on and on and on, so we were aware of it very early, but we just didn't think it was a problem until it went. And went. Yeah.
And science does tell us it takes around 66 days to form a habit. And this is how long most Australians spent in lockdown. And for Victorians, as we know, it's much longer, as we're currently experiencing a real life Groundhog Day at the moment. So, I mean, were you aware at that time how long it actually takes to form a new habit, being 66 days at all?
Not at all. I don't think I'd ever really thought about that. I definitely wasn't aware of that until the results came out. But
and did, I guess, the drinking like gradually increase, or did you notice like a sudden spike and or escalation? For example, like was it just that you were just having one glass of wine a night? And I mean, the other thing that comes into consideration, which we were just talking about, is the fact that what a standard drink is when you go to going out for dinner or you're going wherever, in a pub or what have you. Of course, they've got that line, don't they? And the standard drink is however many milliliters, depending what it is you're drinking. But of course, at home, we're not taking into consideration what a standard drink is also.
No.
So I'd love to know your thoughts on that in particular.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the frequency that we started drinking was immediate. Like pretty much as soon as lockdown was announced, then it started, and it was every night from then on. And it certainly started with just the one. And although, like we said, with a standard drink, it might have been more than a one, but it felt like a one for us. But I found it interesting after a few weeks how quickly our tolerance changed. So, we'd have just that one glass initially, but after a month or so, I can't remember exactly, but it was like, oh, well, we may as well just finish off that. We've got a tiny bit in the bottle left, so we'll just finish that. And then it became 2, and I don't think we ever got more than sort of 2 and a bit glasses each, but we didn't even notice it. It was almost like we were drinking cordial. Like it, just our tolerance over such a regular pattern of drinking had really changed. So we could easily finish a bottle between us and not even blink. And I mean, we weren't starting till the kids were in bed, but I certainly know I've got a few friends, they've even sent me messages recently since this campaign started, saying how they'd started drinking earlier in the day because they weren't at work, they didn't have to drive anywhere, the kids were all at home. And so then that's naturally going to lead to drinking more, because if you start earlier, there's more hours in the evening before you go to bed.
100%.
So your tolerance grows, and that time was taken away where you weren't knocking off work, took a while to get home, get dinner ready. You're home
Yeah.
all day. Like, there's nothing really to stop you if you aren't aware of your, behavior and make a conscious decision.
And your body does
Yeah.
adapt. It's incredible how quickly we can
So
adapt and
quickly.
change our daily routines, under a great amount of stress. And even just,
For sure.
when our bodies from a pH level as well, like from being that it obviously becomes more acidic when we're drinking alcohol, your body just becomes more and more accustomed to be able to be okay with
Tolerate it. Yeah,
tolerate
that's
it.
right. Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
opposed to when your body's actually at the other end of the pH level where it's healthy and it's thriving with good stuff. So
Yes.
that being said, I'd love to know, how did you break the habit then?
Well, we did a few things. So physically, to break the habit, the first few nights we would still use our wine glasses, our same wine glasses, but we'd put like kombucha or juice or soft drink in it instead. But it still felt like a treat because that's not something we would drink, every night or during the day. So that was still our like special treat at night. And then it
Kombucha
progressed.
in replacement
Yeah.
of wine. There you go.
Yeah, it
Very
worked pretty well.
good.
It even looked a bit like a rosé when I was having my raspberry kombucha. And then we progressed to, we didn't need that anymore after a few nights. And we progressed to having like cups of tea and chocolate. That was a different way of treating ourselves. I mean, you can argue, I suppose, what's worse for you. But in terms of alcohol, just to break that cycle, having tea and a bit of chocky was another thing. We also tried to just go to bed a bit earlier because you remove that temptation. You put off having a drink a little bit later every day, and then if you go to bed a bit earlier, that also removes that temptation.
But
and
it wasn't
my
like
husband and I worked. No, sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, so it wasn't like a cold turkey. You gradually sort of eased yourself out of it. Is that right?
Well, it was cold turkey with the wine, but we had to sort of ease ourselves out of just the habit of
The routine and
pouring
the
ourselves
ritual of it.
something. Exactly. The ritual of it. That's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
But the actual finishing of the wine, we did cold turkey, and we made a commitment. We were like, we're going to do the month with no alcohol, and we were both in it together, which really helped. And that made a huge difference. And once that month was over, look, we're back to drinking wine now, but very much in moderation, just back to the weekends, we are back to our pre-lockdown routine.
Yes.
It also helps to give a bit of to the week. Like, I get
I
happy
know
that it's Friday night or Saturday
it's not Blur's
night
Day.
again
You
now.
don't know what day the week
exactly,
it is.
exactly. It's like we've sort of got a bit of a routine back to our, well, for me,
Yeah,
my
routine
husband's
is
still
important.
working. So, but for me, it's like,
Yeah.
you still look forward to the weekend, and we're trying to have different habits on the weekend compared to during the week. But
Love
yeah,
it.
it's more about, that awareness of your behavior, and not necessarily going cold turkey, but just bringing back the routine that perhaps you had before.
So once you realized
Yeah.
how much more alcohol you had been going through than normal, and then made a conscious decision to go back to your usual drinking routine of only on the weekends, as you've just mentioned, how long did it take for you to notice an overall difference in your health and energy levels then?
Well, when we stopped drinking, we were back to, what did we get to, stage 2 or something, where I'd gone back to work. I'd only been back at work for maybe a week and a half, when it then was announced we were going back into lockdown. So initially it was okay, because it sort of felt like we were back to our normal level of drinking, but we were also getting back to real life. Like, we'd started to exercise a bit more again, and I was back working, and life was slowly heading in that right direction. The challenge came when lockdown was announced again, and it was only the middle of the month, or not even. We were like, oh my goodness, can we last? Can we do this even in lockdown? And we were lucky in that we both took our commitment, seriously, and we helped each other to get through the month. But I could see it was a slippery slope. Like, it would have been very easy to just jump straight back into that habit.
Well, that's just the thing.
But we certainly
the first time.
Yes, we did. And when we were drinking every night, we had lessened our exercise. We had started to, eat a little bit more, like different takeaway and things like that. And we were just feeling really sluggish. And we came out of that lockdown feeling very blur. And so we were really keen to try to approach this one a little bit better, come out the other end feeling less blur. So yeah, not drinking as much. We have both exercised more. We are trying to eat better, and the combination has really helped. And so now, on a weekend, I don't feel guilty for having a glass of wine. It's fine, but because we know it's just part of our weekly routine, but it's very moderated. Yeah.
And it's great that you've learned from that first lockdown, because we had in the situation if unfortunately
that's right,
stage 4, would hate to think that we would ever have to go back into a stage 4 again. But I mean, the first lockdown did feel like it was a little bit of a novelty. I don't know about you, but it actually, this is something new, very new, I have to say.
Yes.
Concept. But now that we're sort of hit with this stage 4 restrictions, that there is a different level of heaviness to it. And
definitely.
I have sort of found, and just, I'm not sure what you think, but for a lot of families and people that maybe didn't learn that lesson in that first level of lockdown, this second lockdown is going to be a lot harder and much more difficult on the other side of it, to be able to come out and to be able to change different habits that have been sort of adapted as well. And so I don't know.
I mean, it's been such a long time. That 66 days to form a habit. Well, I mean, in Melbourne anyway, we've certainly
surpassed
well and
that.
truly bypassed that. So, yeah, people, it won't just be their drinking too. It'll be, whether
healthy.
They've sort of become more sedentary or eating not as well, and it's all seems like, even when lockdown finishes, it's not just going to click and be over. There's the stages, it'll be very gradual,
incremental
return to normal, and it's really hard to keep your motivation and keep your spunk when everything is just so heavy, like you said.
But it's just a matter of, I think, just being aware of it. And I think that is the first step, being aware of what the changes are in your body. How are you feeling healthy? How are you feeling any different? Which we are obviously feeling different than life pre-COVID. It's just a matter of then, from a healthy perspective, working out how we can sort of work our way back to that. And
that's right. I mean, some people might have created really good habits as well. Like they might, working from home, have had time to exercise more or sleep better or look after themselves, and that's great. So it's being aware of your good habits and your bad habits, and sort of, I suppose, being empowered to make a change if you think you should. I'm not saying everybody has to, but it's
absolutely
knowing what you want to do going forward, aware of where you're at now, and having that power to be like, just because I've perhaps drunk more these last few months doesn't mean now that is what I'm going to do forever.
Of course.
You can gradually make a change, because it's such long-term
circumstances.
Exactly. And we don't want in 20 years to be like, oh, we all drank too much and we kept it up, and now then we want the power. You got to be empowered yourself to make your changes if it's necessary.
And reading the information about the poll as well, it's incredible that half the people who told the Drug and Alcohol Foundation, that they drank more during that time, said that they wanted to reduce how much they were drinking. So in saying that, did you find, and you made reference to some of your families and friends and maybe neighbors as well, but I mean, from the circles of people, and naturally through this campaign as well, that you've had contact with lots of other people, have you found that has been the case with other people outside of your family as well?
Yes, definitely. A lot of people have seemed to say, oh, I just don't think I can though until this difficult period is over. And I suppose that's okay too, as long as they're aware of that and are prepared to do it when the time comes. But even just, I know when lockdown was first announced, all the, the memes and things going around on social media about all the homeschooling mums racing to Dan Murphy's to stock up. It was funny at first, I think, but just sort of a bit much now. It's like, hold on, it's a
At what
serious
point?
issue. Like, we don't all want to become, you know, reliant on that to get through the day, but
There is a
it's sort
line
of
that's sort of,
perpetuated by social media sometimes. And it's funny. I love a joke. Like, I'm sure I liked and laughed at lots of them, but yeah, it's not a healthy way to manage your stress long term.
100%.
Yeah,
And
and
talking about
it's
homeschooling and just parenting in
mm,
general, did you find that once you made that shift and sort of then eased your way out of the daily drinking, that it helped you with just your general parenting and homeschooling? And if that is the case, then how?
I think so. I think it was, for me anyway, was trying to be a better version of myself, like for the kids, and like a good role model and taking control of my behaviour. And I do think I would never say I would wake up hungover or anything. It wasn't like I was drinking that much, but it's harder to stay hydrated if you're drinking a lot. And so, I might wake up feeling a bit irritable, which made homeschooling that much harder. So I don't know if it was a mindset or a physical change, but I did find I was
Bit of both,
less,
probably.
yeah, like
Bit
I
A,
was,
bit of
I
B.
was just less agitated, in the day. I was more patient with the kids. I mean, I'm not the most patient person, but I've been more patient with
So you
them
did see
since.
a difference.
I
Yeah.
did. I definitely did. And my husband slept a lot better not drinking every night, which makes a huge difference too to the household, mood when everyone's a little bit happier and better slept. So it
Yeah.
definitely made a big difference. Yeah, mentally and physically.
Now, through your experience, how can other parents then recognize any of the problem signs, similar to what you had sort of seen leading up to realizing, I guess, the effects on your body and your life overall? And in that case, what can they do and what should they do to turn it around, do you think?
Well, I think if you're noticing yourself perhaps like starting to drink earlier and earlier in the day, that's obviously a bit of a sign that you probably increased your intake, and maybe push it out a little bit later each day instead. We're probably finding, like we were going through a lot more. So that became obvious at the end of the week when we'd go grocery shopping. And so the thought of maybe buying a bit less and making sure that lasts the week, that's another thing. I was a big fan of my kombucha in a wine glass, I have to tell you.
Well,
So
I find that interesting because I was just thinking about that, Casey. I was thinking it wasn't even so much about the fact that you wanted alcohol, you just wanted a
no, it's just
reward
the
for getting through
ritual
the
of a
day.
reward.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think it's
So,
the way for a lot of people
yeah,
because,
100%.
yeah, it's just that unusual circumstance and trying to find some, positive at the end of the day. So, but yeah, a bit of chocolate instead is, who doesn't like that? And yeah, just being aware of, I think we're supposed to have the recommended intakes like 10 standard drinks a week maximum. And like we were saying, if you think a normal standard drink, we're not pouring that at home. So even just one a day that's more than the one standard drink, you're probably
100%.
hitting that easily. So there is a drinks calculator on the website,
I
which
was
I
going to
think you're going
speak
to
about
mention.
that. Yeah. And,
But that can be a good idea just to get an idea of where you're at, and then to just gradually shift that back to the level you're happy with. Yeah.
yeah. And I guess the good news is that there is a lot of practical support available right now. How to change behavior online. There's 24/7 helpline numbers. And even, I guess, the smaller steps, such as introducing an alcohol-free day, as you just mentioned before, having one less drink a day, and or, pushing back when you start drinking, and all the other tips that you just shared as well can have an incredible impact. So just before we go, I just wanted to mention that we had actually published an article for the Drug and Alcohol Foundation titled "1 in 5 Aussies Regret How Much Alcohol They Drank During Lockdown." And the article does highlight lots of key points, given that nearly 1 in 5 Australians wish they had drunk less alcohol during the COVID-19 initial lockdown, that nearly 20% want to reduce the amount of alcohol they've been consuming recently, and at least 12% of people drank every day during lockdown. and 1 in 10 said that on average that they drank more than the recommended guidelines. As we were just saying, with the standard drinks, we're not necessarily measuring
Easy to
100%.
for them to add up.
And the article also, as you just mentioned, has a link through to the Drug and Alcohol Foundation's quick and interactive drinking calculator, which is worth a look-see for sure. So, Casey, we've loved this chat today. If you were to summarize any of your key messages for anyone watching and listening, what would they be?
Just to try to be aware of your behavior, take stock of what you've been doing and what you perhaps want to do in the future, and then just be empowered to make a change if you think that's the course you need to take. And just small steps equal big changes in the long run. So
and then maybe just finding a replacement for that daily ritual reward. And, you know, kombucha is a great replacement for a glass of wine.
Making you healthier at the same time.
And it's worthwhile just to mention one last time, the longer a habit is left to form, the harder it can be to change these. Sure. So I can hear that you're busy with your little ones. We'll let you go. For everyone watching, listening, we'll have the links through to the Drug and Alcohol Foundation. And we're going to let you and your little Spider-Man. You take care, Casey. Thanks for your time.
And thanks so much.
Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye.